I'd call this analog synthetic DMT weed. After receiving a package in the mail from a Chinese vendor, we, my significant other and I, soon could tell that this substance was not the 2FDCK we ordered. It was tan-colored and of an earthy ground-up consistency. The vendor must have sent us the wrong thing. However, I wanted to make sure it wasn't still 2FDCK. This was the first of my 2 experiences with this substance. I was attending college at this time. Late one evening, I cut up 3 small lines to try out. I was pretty sure this wasn't 2F because it wasn't crystallized at all. It was like brown and clumpy. Regardless, I decided to snort it. Right away, my nasal passages burned like hell. The burn didn't go away either. It persisted for an hour. The effects came on slowly. I felt a heavy body load, like I had smoked too much weed. My eyes became bloodshot and I was paranoid. I laid down in my bed hoping to sleep it off. I don't remember that morning very well. I was still very high and was extremely paranoid, everybody could tell. I didn't want to go to class, but apparently I did anyways. I don't remember anything of my activities that day. It was like a blackout from weed. It was after that experience that we came to the conclusion it was a very potent synthetic cannabinoid. My boyfriend compared a lot of photos, and we believe it is 5F MDMB-2201. Instead of our 2FDCK, the vendor must have switched up our substance. So instead of the ounce of 2F RC-ketamine, we got an ounce of insanely potent spice. We've done more research since then, but there isn't really anything known about 5F MDMB-2201. One of his friends asked to buy some, so he did. He described sprinkling a little on the end of his cigarette and immediately being paralyzed for 5 minutes in his chair. This stuff is super fucking potent and is not something to be taken lightly. After more research and looking over what information we could, we found that people reported doing under 1 milligram of the substance as the usual dose. We are now going to dissolve this substance and coat it onto plant matter to sell as spice. However, it only takes 2 to 3 milligrams of this substance to make 1 pound of spice. We will have this shit forever. Okay, so the reason I'm typing this out now is because I had a very bad experience trying it again. I had done some GHB earlier that night and was looking for something else to do. I know mixing really anything with GHB is bad, but I thought I had come down enough to where a little weed wouldn't hurt anything. It was probably 4 hours after I dosed the GHB. He's on probation, so he was wanting to see if it would show on tests, so I agreed to take a piss test the next day. He sprinkled on about 4 to 5 granules onto the foil. I think I was laughing because he only put such a small amount on. I walked over to the window with the treated foil, lighter and straw. I kept making fun of it, but he persisted that it would be enough. I laughed and then quickly smoked the tiny amount. There wasn't even much visible smoke. I was sure that this wasn't going to do anything. However, I was totally wrong. Not even 10 seconds after I walked from the window to the couch and sit down, an intense body high like nothing else came over me, and I was barely able to get to the couch. He asked if I felt it, and then it was all fucked up from there. I would describe this substance as DMT spice. The entire trip felt like hours, but in reality, my boyfriend said it was between 15 to 30 minutes. The whole time I felt nothing, like I was floating. I was stuck in one position, paralyzed. For hours it felt like I was stuck in a DMT time loop. The whole time I could see geometrical patterns and visuals, bright neon colors, tracers, and faces, but nothing like real-world images. During the whole thing, I felt like I had to resurface and come back to the real world. I felt like I had to relearn images and learn to breathe again. I learned later that I was in a state of psychosis. The whole time I heard somebody, God or the universe, talking to me. It was telling me I had to complete these tasks and relearn everything. I felt like I was moving in a million different ways, figuring out how my body worked and what it took to prove myself that I'm capable of living. At some point, I became very nauseous. I don't remember the feeling of throwing up, but apparently my boyfriend helped me throw up into a plastic bag. All throughout, there was also a voice telling me what to do. It instructed me to breathe, swallow, etc. I completed these tasks. Most importantly was the instruction of breath. I knew if I didn't breathe, I couldn't prove myself to God and I would die. The entire time I felt like I was shaking and tremoring. I saw fractals and visuals constantly. After what seemed to be an eternity, I was able to open my eyes and see the real world. Everything was twisted like DMT or acid, closer to DMT. Everything was fuzzy, glowing, ebbing, twisting, and swirling. It did not seem real. It all felt like a simulation. I had strong delusions. I heard my man on the phone and thought they were going to sell a video of me like this to the press. I don't know why I thought of this, but it was very disturbing and kept me paranoid. I stood up, shaking and still extremely high, saying a bunch of nonsense. I was trying to ask him not to sell the video. I also thought I was in somebody else's apartment. I didn't recognize the man on the phone as my boyfriend until much later. The man said everything was going to be alright and asked me to sit down. I didn't want to sit down because I was scared he was going to do something. However, I followed what he said because I was really dizzy. He offered me some water and I could barely drink without spilling the cup because I was shaking so bad. I remember laying down for a bit longer, slowly regaining sensible consciousness. I eventually recognized that he was my boyfriend and that I was in our apartment. Although I realized I was having a delusion, I still felt an impending sense of doom. He fell asleep on the bed and I was still on the couch. When I felt better, I went over and fell asleep on the bed too. I woke up today and still couldn't believe what happened. I feel anxious about the whole thing and that it was a super big deal. Today I got some more insight and clarification as to what happened. I believe that some of the voices last night were him talking to me. He was asking me if I was okay and holding my head up so I could breathe. He was the one instructing me to breathe. At some point early in the trip, I suppose, he came over to see if I was alright. During the trip, I thought God was saying, "Oh, you're high. Oh, you're really high." And then he said in an Irish accent, "You're really high, aren't you now?" Today I asked my boyfriend if he said that, and he said yes. I guess it's funny now, but it was freaking me out at the time because I couldn't move or do anything. He also said that during the whole thing, he thought I was on the brink of a seizure. He said that I was shaking and tremoring the entire time, which I felt at some points of the trip. I was anxious because I was so vulnerable. Never has a drug made me feel that way. As I am writing this, 12 hours later, I still feel stoned, but at least able to function. I am still paranoid and anxious. This whole experience was very scary. It was delirious, super trippy, incomprehensible, and life-threatening. If you were to combine DMT, acid, weed, and Benadryl together, you would yield this horrid drug. So all in all, if you hate yourself, love psychosis, and like to feel like you're seizing for 3 hours, this drug is for you. If I were you, I would not do 5F MDMB-2201. So it all started when I went online to buy a research chemical. I tried a couple hallucinogens, but at the time was looking for a synthetic cannabinoid. I saw MDMB-CHMICA, so thought why not, and bought a gram of it to make incense and sell a little as well to buds. So I waited a week and a half, which was longer than the others, but it arrived. I was scared of taking it because of its potency, supposedly being in micrograms, but said fuck it. I started out dissolving maybe 1 milligrams in acetone and dipped a cigarette in it. I smoked just a tiny hit and waited, felt nothing. So I smoked more, still nothing. So I finished that cig, went for another dipper this time and added some more. Now it felt good. I felt stoned, not like other synthetics that were a little too potent. Anyways, everything is going pretty well. Take note, I kept the cigarette filter on and didn't inhale much because I hate cigarettes ever since I smoked e-cigs. Now back to the story. So later that night, I decided to try something different, so I put maybe 20 milligrams of oregano in my bowl and possibly 1 to 5 milligrams of powder onto the oregano. I smoked it and immediately started to feel something. It felt like pot, it was just like it. I had a little more euphoria, but so far so good. 3 minutes go by and I notice it's getting stronger, not as bad as other synthetics, but felt a little uncomfortable. It hit 5 minutes in. I felt it continue to build up, but no warning signs. All of a sudden, bam, sucker punch to the face. I'm delirious. It felt like I was lost, not like hallucinogens where you're still there in your head, but a whole new level of trip I never experienced. I then got extremely sick trying to vomit, but I could not since I didn't have enough food in my stomach. I just kept gagging and gagging. I am now stuck, like I can't move. I can't process what's going on. I'm lost. Then it felt like I was in a video game, like I had this urge to complete a mission of some sort, but couldn't figure out what I was supposed to do. Finally, my mom heard me trying to vomit, and she came running after she called me and got no response. She just appeared as I'm still trying to throw up and think about my mission. She looked weird, not like, oh man, look at the colors, but her face was distorted in a way you can't understand. She called the ambulance and I'm still frozen in one place trying to throw up. The ambulance came at the speed of light, like I thought it only took 2 minutes. Long story short, I'm being asked questions about the drug I took. Somehow I remember the drug name and kept telling them in my drugged up state, but they didn't get it until I said K2. They were asking me questions in the ambulance like, what's your name? I remembered that. What's your date of birth? I don't know. What's your age? I said 13, 17, 21, 18, 19, but I liked age 13 for some reason. Next minute, I'm in the ER. I have nurses telling me to take off my pants, and at first I said no, but then I was like, hell yeah, so I take them off and wanted to take my boxers off, but they never asked, and in my drugged up stupor, I was hoping, but hey, whatever. So then I get an IV stuck in me. I hate needles. I really hate them. I was worried about getting water and brushing my teeth since I just vomited a little at my house, and I had cottonmouth out the ass. They refused to give me water because of the doctor for some stupid reason, and so I never got a toothbrush, but fuck it. I'm tripping now. I'm seeing patterns and colors as I close my eyes. Eyes are rolling in my head, blacking in and out. Heartbeat monitor is screeching off since it's 160 beats per minute, and talking like an idiot, almost like your drunk kind of talk. After 3 hours, I finally started to come back, but was still high as shit. I got to leave after 4 hours as I was somewhat fine again. I went home and slept it off. I woke up still stoned and it lasted for about 15 hours total. It was a terrible experience, the worst I've ever had, and I stay away from synthetic weed now because it's unpredictable. If you want to get delirious, super trippy to where it's weird and you can't comprehend it and possibly die, this is the drug for you.